I am Erica Taylor Beck. I'm the founder of Authentic Foundations, and today I have a lovely guest, Cassandra Juniphant, who is going to be joining us to talk about. Well, Cassandra, let me let you go ahead and share what you want to talk about.
Stumbling forward, finding my way,
Figuring it
figuring this,
out.
yeah, figuring this all out, having a lot of grace with myself, practicing self-care. I mean, all of that I think has been part of the journey. So thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be number two. And yeah, I'm excited about our conversation today. We talk very fluidly and easily, so gonna enjoy this.
Yeah, well, good. I'm excited. And yes, you're not the first victim. We've already tried this out, and so I know that this does work. But thank you for being number two. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, we are also just figuring this all out as we go. But can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now? Because you are the founder of, is it Ari Aura?
Ori Ara,
Ori
yes,
Ara.
yes,
And can you tell
yes.
us a little bit about Ori Ara and what you're doing there?
Sure. So I founded Ori Ara in 2021 after being laid off. I think many of us have that layoff story. And
Yeah.
when I got laid off, it never occurred to me to go look for another job. I didn't, brush up my resume. I didn't really apply for anything. I was like, I think I'm going to bet on myself. I think I'm going to go out into the world and do this thing. And my company Oriara has seen many, many, many iterations, as us business owners know, as you get into the market with your ideas and then the market responds and you're trying to figure out, like, where do I fit in all of this. But today Oriara is a self-care company, and I have the mission, the goal of returning traditional wellness practices and values to today's modern woman.
I love that.
The backstory to that, though, you might be wondering, like, why self-care? Like, how did you even get there? So my backstory to that is human resources. I've been in HR for over 20 years, climbing the corporate ladder like many of us do. For many of those years, it was as a single mother. But partway through, like a lot of women, I struggled to lose the baby weight with my second child. I just could not get the weight off. And believe it or not, I stumbled into bodybuilding. I accidentally found bodybuilding.com. I was in awe of the women that I saw there and became a bodybuilder for 5 years. And I actually went pro in 2016. But on that
Wow.
bodybuilding journey, I fell in love with like having a body and learning about the body and just all of the things. And so I ended up owning a gym. I ended up becoming a certified personal trainer, a yoga instructor, martial arts. I competed for a little bit, studied
Wow.
nutrition, supplements. I mean, I just fell in love. I was like, tell me more about my body. What else can it do? And now, mind you, though, this was my side hustle along that corporate career.
Hmm.
And what I noticed is that my corporate career was going like this. Like it was no question in my mind that there was not just a direct correlation, but direct causation to my success in business, getting the promotions, getting the raises, with my health and well-being, because I was first leading myself before going into my corporate career and my work environment, and being able to lead there as well. And so I did that for about 10 years on the side of my corporate career, all of those things that I
Wow.
mentioned. And that was actually in addition to being an adjunct professor for a few years. But I look back at that time and it sounds like a lot, but when I tell you I was in the flow, when I tell you I was just healthy, happy, vibrant, alive, and not was, is, but I look back on that time as being really, really magical. And, everyone else is like, oh my gosh, your trophies. Oh my gosh, your abs. And I'm like, no, you guys, something else more magical is happening inside of me. And what you see is literally just the overflow from the transformation that's taking place inside. So when I got laid off in 2021, I was like, well, I'm uniquely positioned to help. This was COVID time, right? This is when,
Yeah.
some of us for the first time were talking about health and wellness and taking care of ourselves. And self-care, that was the kind of like the resurgence of self-care was during COVID.
Yep.
And I thought I'm uniquely positioned with my, deep awareness of corporate life and what that is like, as being a single mother, as being a woman of color, and being healthy. I'm uniquely positioned to help at this time. And so that's why I founded Oriara. And yeah, that's what brings me here today.
Oh, just that. Like, there's a couple of
It's
things. There's,
yeah,
even though I heard your story before, as you're saying, I'm like, and this, and this, and like the things that you've done at the same time. It's impressive that
thank
you were
you.
doing all of that. But you said a couple of things that I really loved. One was that after you got laid off, you said, I bet on myself. And I
Yeah,
thought that was fantastic that you were like, you know what, I'm going all in on me and what I know I can do and what I have to offer. But you also talked about how your career was kind of skyrocketing as you were taking care of yourself. And I
yeah,
think, I don't have children. We have 9 pets, but they're not the same as human children. So definitely can't relate to all of that. But I do know that a lot of women and parents in general feel like, being a parent is a priority. And so how do you invest then into your career, but then also self-care and going to the gym and doing all of these things? And, I know that you mentioned kind of hitting a flow, but what advice do you have for folks who are like, look, I can't balance it. I don't have time to take care of me because I'm taking care of all this other stuff.
yeah. So the first thing I say is throw the idea of balance out the window. It's it's false. It's misleading to think that we're going to have balance. We only have 24 hours in the day, and we in theory, 8 of those are supposed to go to sleep. So that means we're left with 16 hours, right? To balance work and our personal lives. That's just not realistic. It's not going to happen. We're going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul, and that's what we spend our entire time doing in the pursuit of balance as though that's the goal, and that's not really the goal. The actual, I can't say etymology, well, yeah, the etymology and like the origins of work-life balance was how much you can incorporate the two, how much you can bring the two together, not hold them equally separate. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
It makes a lot of
this
sense.
this is what work-life balance used to mean, and understanding that, I really kind of adopted that. And so once you get rid of the idea of balance and you want to find harmony and incorporation, I think that's going to be where the magic happens, or at least that's what happened for me, where my entire fitness journey and my entire corporate career, my kids were a part of it. I can't compartmentalize and say I'm a mom here, and then I'm a VP of HR here, and then I'm a gym owner here, and then an adjunct professor here. I couldn't do all that. It wouldn't have worked. I would have burnt out and felt overwhelmed. But because it was
Right.
all together, so my kids were 100% a part of this with me, like every single minute of the day, from going to the gym, or if we couldn't, when there was a period of time where I couldn't afford a gym membership, and I couldn't afford the daycare at the gym, so we went to the park or we worked out at home, um, cooking the meals. It's really a matter of incorporation. I brought my kids to work. When I was allowed to work from home, I worked from home. But it was really a matter of integrating and bringing it all together. And I think that when we give ourselves permission to not strive for this separation and this, because immediately it feels combative when you try to pull it apart and make it equal. It's like then they end
Hmm.
up butting heads. And so I really think and try to coach that the goal is this integration, and allowing the those parts of your life to overlap, and without feeling guilty about it. That's the other part, is just giving ourselves a lot of grace, because
Yeah.
we are human. And I think allowing yourself to be, especially for women in the work field. I remember when I first started, I didn't even want to admit I was a single mother, because I feared, I guess, or had concerns about the stereotypes that might come along with that, and what my people might believe of me or expect of me, or then be able to cast a shadow on my work because I was a single mother. But then when I realized, I remember literally waking up one day and thinking, I'm a single mother and I'm running circles around these fools. You know what I mean? Like, I need to be more proud of that. Let me say this more boldly. Let me put more pictures of my kids up. Let me do more and say how much more I'm a single mother, because I'm killing it, actually. And that's something to be proud of, right? And so that was part of my integration. That was part of me, not trying to compartmentalize, but to bring it all together. And in doing that, yeah, it allowed the flexibility and the fluidity to do it all, and to do it all in a way that felt really good to me and really natural.
I love that. You said a
Yeah.
couple of things that really resonated. One, I think you said grace, giving yourself grace, and that I think is really important because I do feel like a lot of people are so hard on ourselves for one reason or another. And these preconceived ideas and expectations that we have for ourselves, like let them go.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know where they all come from, but we have them and it's just we're harsh. But the other one you mentioned was harmony. And I
Yeah.
love that because you said it's not balance because you can't.
No.
It's never going to be exactly 50-50,
No.
and it's just and there's that tension if you are focusing more time on one thing than another, like the other side's going to feel some kind of like I left out or I'm not getting enough, and which then makes you feel even more guilt. So the harmony of just, today I have to do more here. It
Yeah.
doesn't take away what I have and how much I'm, integrated and invested here, but it just, this was requiring more effort. And then tomorrow, like, it might be this. And I love that idea. And going back to you're talking about, you know, when you started working out, and one, I just in the picture I've seen, like your arms are fantastic. I know that's a byproduct of like all the rest of the in stuff, but I was like, man, you've got some serious, fantastic arms.
Thank you.
But you mentioned that you fell in love with having a body, and this was
Yeah.
something that is kind of a newer thought for me because we grow up as humans, we have bodies, and it is what it is. But as I kind of have fallen into more of the spiritual side of things, like we are a spiritual being in a human
Mhm.
experience in a physical body. Like I call this like an avatar. Like this is the
Yeah.
avatar I picked. This is like
Yeah.
what I'm doing with my body. And so when you talked about, like, I have this body and like what can it do? And it's really kind of figuring it out for the first time. Like when you get a new car and you're like, what does this button do? And like,
Yeah.
what does that do? And like, oh my gosh, did you know that this could do? It's one of those things. And so would you mind maybe talking a little bit more about that? Like how you started to that spiritual side of like finding the physical body and developing it and growing it and how that really just made you feel more whole and more of like yourself.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer that in just one second, but I did want to touch on, I forgot to say something about the parenting piece also about
Yeah.
all of this, which is I like to remind parents that we're not raising kids. We're raising adults, actually. And let that impact how and what you expose them to and how you interact with them and how you spend your time with them. I think we over index on the play dates sometimes, right? Not that socialization isn't a good thing, but taking your kid with you to work, taking your kid with you to work out, making sure that you guys are all eating the same healthy meal and not getting them chicken nuggets while you have a salad. Like you're raising
Good
adults,
point.
and my kids are teenagers now and eat fruits and vegetables without me making them because they grew up understanding that this was just normal life. They're both athletes now, not because they're athletes and mom does nothing, but because this is what our family does. We stay active. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to throw that out there that we're raising adults, and the more we normalize this at a young age, taking care of ourselves and being healthy, the more normal it'll be for them. And whatever challenges you're facing are probably because it wasn't normalized for you as a child. So one of the greatest gifts you can give towards your like
Ah,
generational health and wealth and well-being is
man.
making sure, yeah, we're raising adults. We're not raising kids. They don't stay kids forever.
No,
So
I love that. I love
yeah, yeah,
that because you
we
want to
can
lead by
drop that in there.
example.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was like a
exactly.
mic drop. Most was a casual drop. That was like a that was a yeah, but that makes so much sense that you want to buffer and protect them as they're little, but you do need to prepare them for life and
Yeah.
exposing them to these things like the spirituality and like the health and all of that as a youngster. It does help them to be a little bit more open-minded to that stuff growing up because if you've never
100.
experienced it, like you don't necessarily believe in it or you're not open to it or you're like no it's just not how that works because it's not what your family kind of tells you sometimes feels like gospel, and that's what
100%.
I learned. That's what my parents, like, I love them and I trust them and that's what they told me, and so you're wrong, and it does make sense to expose them to new and different things.
Yeah.
As I again as a non-parent here I am like yeah that makes a lot of sense, but it does. And if it worked for my dogs I would tell them that stuff too, but I think that's fantastic advice.
Thank you so much. But the question on the table was about the spirituality piece. And that is one of my favorite things to talk about because that honestly is what has led, that is what is at the heart of the consistency that I've had with my health and well-being over the last 12 years is understanding that I'm a spirit first that just so happens to have a body. I'm not a body that just so happens to have a spirit or a soul. And so when you think about that, like when I sat with that, I really became curious. And a little side story to that backstory is that I started my fitness journey around the same time that I started my spiritual journey. So the backstory is I was married to a minister for 7 years. My children's father is a minister in the church, and I really struggled with religion, and so I left the church. And so we got divorced not shortly, thereafter.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember like just not knowing like what was what. Like I knew that there was some sort of a God or something, but I didn't know how to make it make sense because what I was learning in my religion didn't make sense to me. And so this is all happening around the same time. And I remember one day getting ready for a bodybuilding show. It's peak week. And in peak week of bodybuilding, it's the week literally before you hit the stage. And so you are intentionally dehydrating your body so your muscles pop, right? You're
Right.
not eating any carbs. It was just like a miserable workout that I was going through. And I remember hearing loud and clear from spirit, from source, from God, whatever you believe in, really loud and clear, and said, "This is what we came for." And I got this immediate download that having a body was 100% the purpose of coming into physical form. Like if we're spirits, we're
Hmm.
non-physical. Why did we choose this? It's because there's magic in our body. And so as I was, getting through that grueling workout, I realized that my lungs burning and the ache in my muscles and the sweat all over my body was such a beautiful thing for spirit to experience. And it really changed how I engaged with my body. And then, like you said, it became this journey of like, ooh, what does this do? Ooh, what does that do? And I became so fascinated and went down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out, like, I have this body. How do I optimize it? What is it here for? Like, how am I supposed to use this thing? And I sometimes sit back and I'm like, it's amazing that I had two kids, and it wasn't pregnancy that brought me into that awareness. You would think creating a whole freaking life in your body would like tune you into it, but I was still very disembodied, even maybe more so disembodied after having kids, because while it's happening in your body, you realize your body is there for the child, and then
Yeah, it's
you
not yours
breastfeed.
anymore at this
It's
point.
not yours anymore, and then you breastfeed and you feel like this. I don't know. It's a weird feeling. It's a really weird thing. And so I was very disembodied. And then bodybuilding, though, is what made me realize, yes, I have a body and there's something, it's purposeful. It's purposeful. And I beginning to, open, like asking myself those questions literally opened up the neural pathways in my brain to allow answers to start to flow in, about how does the body work? Why do I have it? How do I optimize it? What is it meant to do? All of these things. And as these answers started coming in, I began to realize that I truly am divine. I really am a divine feminine. You are truly a divine feminine. All of the women watching are truly like, that's not just, oh, go goddess, go. It's not one of those
Right.
cutesy, no, for real, for real. Like for
Yeah.
real, for real. The divine is expressing through you as a woman. And so that made me realize, like, well, then if the divine is expressing through me, I'm kind of like a for real earthbound goddess, and how does a goddess behave? How does she act? How does she treat herself? How does she rest herself? What does she eat? Who does she hang around with? How does she entertain herself? How does she take care? Like all of these questions started to flood my mind. And I went in search of answers. I was like, well, I'm something special. I believe that in with my whole heart. I'm not going to just accept anything in my life. And so that's led to 12 years of consistency and just simply honoring the divinity that is trying to experience life through me. It makes it almost effortless. And it's not about perfection. It's not like I haven't, had bad hangovers. It's not like I haven't eaten too much pizza. It's not like I haven't gone without working out. Like it's not about perfection. It's about, you know, um, having a compass almost. It's like a compass that orients me towards my greatest desire and orients me towards behaving in a way that is congruent to the spirit that's inside of me, like trying to have an awesome life through my body. And yeah, it's led to where making decisions about whether or not to work out, what to eat when I'm at a buffet and there's, the greasy fried chicken and then there's the, mixed vegetable. Like it makes those kind of decisions a little bit easier. Going to bed, even, my goddess is not cranky and tired, and she's well rested because gods and goddesses are well rested, right? So
Hmm.
it's that level of understanding that helps guide my decisions that have led to this effortless consistency over the last 12 years.
I love that. I'm feeling this is a really weird feeling, but I feel kind of giddy listening to you. Like I feel like I'm almost like giggling, and I'm like, that's not really a. I'm not a giggler, but I was like, it just felt really happy while I was listening to you talk about that. And when you mentioned like talking about like yourself, your spirit experiencing these things. And I loved, actually started to get a little bit teary when you said like this is what we came for,
Yeah.
because you kind of don't realize like you we as humans, like this higher self that is in us, and sometimes there is a disconnect, and so it's about like getting yourself with yourself and realizing like this, it's kind of navigating these experiences, these emotions. And when you think about it from that angle and that lens, there's a different perspective of life. So even things that are you're going through that are hard, if it's a
Yes.
breakup, it's a death, it's something like that. There's this stuff that you're feeling, and it's hard and it's difficult, but it's also beautiful because as a spirit, you don't feel emotions. It's just it's ethereal and whatnot. So this body, you feel physical feelings, and you're feeling, talking about like your lungs burning after a workout. And at the time you're like, oh, this is miserable, but you're like, my lungs are burning because I'm doing this thing, and like I wouldn't have known what lungs felt like if I
Yes.
hadn't jumped into this body. When you
Yes.
start thinking about it from that perspective,
Yes.
almost like an alien coming to Earth and experiencing
Yes.
everything for the first time,
Exactly
you
what it
almost
is.
look at things with new eyes. And I feel like it's so beautiful because I'll be 42 this year, and so I've had a decent life so far. And but like when I look at things now through this new perspective, I look at them differently, and I look at as opportunities, or I look at things that I felt were just so hard or disappointing or negative in a sense. And I'm like, what was that teaching me? Like, what experience did I need to go through to feel, to learn, to become better? And I started viewing things through that perspective, and it made things, I don't say easier, but in a sense easier, because yeah, you still have to go through it. But when you look at it as like, this was teaching me a lesson, or this was helping me to get from that point to this point, because I never would have gotten here if that hadn't spurred me to action or to whatever. And even talking about, picking food and things. And sometimes like it is the fried chicken because you're that myself wants to try something delicious and tasty,
100%.
and like, enjoy all of the experiences, whether it's food, if it's emotions, if it's opportunities, like doing it. And so as you were talking, I felt myself feeling really giddy. And maybe it was my inner self is like, yes, like what she is saying, like snap, like that is on point. So I love that. And I think that is really helpful. How have you taken that? And I know you said you were working in HR for so long. Like, how did you incorporate the two? So as you started to really get in touch with you, how did you
Yeah.
use that to help other people? Because, HR does not always get the best reputation, and
They
I want to
really
give out some kudos to my HR friends because I have a handful, and I know that you get a brunt of negative emotions. But how did you intertwine those two?
Yeah. I'll answer that in just a second, but I'll just want to circle back and say that that giddiness, what I often find when I have these conversations is that you're remembering and you're excited about remembering. When I speak, you're not learning anything from me. You're simply
Hmm.
tapping back into what you already know. And it's a beautiful reminder that your spirit is excited about hearing again and being reminded of exactly, what's going on here. Um, and as far as like the work piece, so I'm gonna answer that in two ways. The first part is that I guess in addition to, the food choices and the feelings and all of that, the other piece is people. The other piece is people in the same awareness, having the awareness that we are spirits. Well, then what does that mean for every person you meet? That they are too.
Yeah.
And I read this book by Carolyn Miss called, I always forget if it's Sacred Agreements or Sacred Contracts. I think it's Sacred Agreements by Carolyn Miss. And she talks about how in the ethereal realms, we have our spirit team, our spirit tribe, and we make agreements that when we come to Earth,
Yes.
we're going to have these relationships. So, Erica, our spirits agreed many, 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 many eons ago at some point that you were going to host this podcast. And I agreed to come on because our spirits decided that this was going to be an important juncture in our careers for each other. And I believe that of every single person that I come across, even the awful ones, especially the awful ones,
Yep.
because it takes a lot of love. It takes a lot of love to agree to come down here and be a complete asshole to you because it's going to spur you and spark you and provide contrast that gets you going in the direction that you need to go to fulfill
Yes.
whatever your purpose is. So every horrible boss, every horrible HR person, every horrible ex, every horrible, parent, every horrible anyone, cashier, the guy who gives you the finger on the road as you're, whatever. Like all of those people love you. It doesn't feel that way because it's not supposed to. Their love for you is being manifested and presented in a way that's going to get you to
Yes.
think and act and take inspired action and steps. And so um, having that, I think, gave me a lot of not just patience, but insight in human resources. Because when I'm talking to someone, I'm not talking to your title, whether you were, a
Yeah.
entry level, front line, I did retail for, I managed retail for a while. And so we had merchandisers putting stuff on shelves. And so you might have been entry level merchandiser putting stuff on shelves, or you could have been the CFO that I was reporting to. It doesn't matter. You're a spirit that I'm talking to. I see you. I don't see you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think that allowed me to, like I said, not just have the patience, but have the insight to work with people. And in working with my managers, in working with executives, that's one of the things that I think is central to my messaging with them, is that you're talking to a whole human being right now. We often just see the employee side of people when we're at work, right? We're often just like, well, you are this. This is your title. These are your responsibilities. These are your OKRs. These are your goals. These are your whatever. This is who you are. And this is all I'm willing to acknowledge. And that is so, so unfortunate because it doesn't begin to capture
Not
the
even close.
entirety of, not even close. And so as soon as managers begin to open up their awareness to the fact that that person is coming in with a spirit, with a family, with pets, with a million and one different layers and levels of life that are impacting how they're showing up to that moment with whatever it is at work that's either going well or not, it changes the conversation. It changes the relationship. And as much as we try to keep things professional, work is all about relationships.
Yeah.
It just is. And we can embrace that, and we can embrace that, or we can still try to compartmentalize. And it's a struggle. And I will say, I think the compartmentalization does work better for men than it does for women, even though women try to, you know, act like men in some of those ways. But I think, there really is value in like accepting the whole humanity of a person when they're sitting across a desk from you, or sharing a cubicle, or at a conference table, or in the lunchroom, except like really embracing the entirety of that person. And it doesn't even, you don't have to like it, but just recognize that
Right.
it's there, right? And that this is part of how and why they're showing up to you the way that they are. Does that answer
Yes.
your question?
Oh, it does. It does. Yeah. And it just keeps spurring new thoughts. And I love what you're talking about because it's so spot on with what I'm trying to do as well as far as coaching new managers and leaders into emotional intelligence and looking at people
Yes.
as human beings because they're not just OKRs, they're not just KPIs and data points. Like they are humans, and maybe they're coming in today and they're just not hitting expectations, but it's because they have a sick parent at home that they're caring for. And like if you can come in and hammer them on their performance, but if you ask some questions and you're like, what's going on? Like you're not doing as well as you normally do. Like, is everything okay? And hopefully they feel safe enough to be able to talk to you and say, this is what's going on outside of work. And you're like, okay, like, how can I support you? Like, you don't have to be at the A game, but I need you to at least be at a B game because if you're below, like, that's when we start to get into some problems professionally and performance wise. But I can support you not being at your best because you have
Yeah.
this stuff going on. And so it's so important to view people as people. And so as you're talking, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And I think I want to think that it's getting better, but I think a lot of that is because the people that I am attracting and that I'm
Yeah.
attracted to have similar mindsets. And so in my smallish bubble, I
Yeah.
have a lot of people who are like-minded. And I'm like, yeah, like this is what I want to see happen. But when you look outside of that bubble, like it's not where it needs to be yet. And I want it to get there and I want to help it get there. And so I love hearing folks like you, who have been in that corporate space and in HR who are saying like people are humans first, employees second, but also that the whole being, the whole spiritual being. And I also love that you were talking about the soul contracts because that's something that I've been learning about recently, not recently, but just in general as well. And you sign up ahead of time to say, in this lifetime, like I'm going to be the victim and you're going to be the aggressor. And like ahead of time, we're like, look, I love you and I'm sorry that's going to happen, but this is what we're doing. And you get there and you do it. And then the next time, like lifetime, maybe it's different, but it's this karmic retribution. And okay, this time I need to be the one who learns the lesson, and this is the time I'm the one that's giving the lesson. And as a human, like we forget all of that has happened. So you come in, you're like, wow, what an asshole,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, no, like we agreed that this was going to be an asshole because that asshole is going to spur you to do this other thing, or you're going to come in and approach them differently and they're going to change their ways because of how you handled it with love instead of, like emotion. And so it's just all of this stuff and how we interact and how we intertwine with other people. I just think it's beautiful. It blows my mind still sometimes just how big it is, but like how minutely detailed it can be at the
Yeah.
same time. And I think
Yeah.
that's just fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we were taught this. I don't know what grade is the appropriate grade to teach this, but I mean, it really is the path to world peace, right? It really is the
Yeah.
path to getting rid of some of the mental health challenges, I think, even that
Yes.
we're facing. I mean, there's just so much that, and that's the crazy part, is that there's so much that impacts work, and we spend most of our time at work. The reason we're so desperate for work life balance is because we do spend so much time at work. But what if work was pleasant? What if
Yeah.
work was nurturing? What if work made space for you to be a person who had an aging parent? What if space made work I'm sorry, what if work made space for, to be someone who, I don't know, is going through a breakup even, or a divorce, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to having to really sever that side of you off. We wouldn't be so desperate for the work-life balance. And so I really implore leaders of organizations, or leaders just in general, if you consider yourself a leader without the title or not,
Right.
for leaders to begin to, I guess, em- understand that. But I just realized as I was talking to you, part of the problem is that leaders aren't making that space for themselves, and so it's really hard to give what you don't even have to give, right? That
Right.
grace, that humanity. A lot of leaders wear that hat, or I should say they wear the title thinking that title means that they show up in a certain way, to themselves, even compartmentalizing and shutting down their own feelings and their own experiences, and not making space for that. And I think that really is at the heart of it. And so um, finding a way to give that to yourself first, so that you then can be that leader. You leaders go first, right? So you do it first, and then your team comes behind you. And so that's really where it is it's working with the leaders of organizations to give that grace and humanity to themselves first.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it is, they need to see you. We talked about earlier, like leading by example as a parent, but leading by example as a leader is I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be human. I'm going to show you these things and give myself grace and then give you grace. And so that you can give each other and you can give me. And yeah, they need to see it modeled before they feel like they can do it. Because if
Yeah.
you're the only one doing it, you feel like you're crazy. You feel like the
Yeah.
outsider because
You
no
do.
one else is thinking this way. So like it's me, I'm the problem. But it's like, no, no, like if your leader's doing that, then this is a place that we can do that. And so, you talked about Ori Ara and how you help people with kind of coming into this where you're giving yourself grace and the self-care. I know you don't really do the yoga instructing and all that anymore, but like can you tell us a little bit more about what you're currently doing and how you're helping people to get in touch with that side of them that they need to get in touch with before they can show up anywhere healthy and fulfilled.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a few different things. I have I'll start with my donation based workshops. Once a month I do a workshop that's donation based, because I really believe self-care needs to be accessible to everyone. It's our birthright. So I don't want to create any barriers to entry. And
Love
so
that.
yeah, I do these donation based workshops once a month. Just to give you an idea, one of them is called Self Care Isn't Just for Sundays, because we have this idea that taking care of ourselves on Sunday is doing something special. And if that's all, you've been able to do so far, that's fabulous. But many of us are still feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. And it's because we thought that doing it once a week was going to be enough. And it's like, no wonder. Self care is a daily
Yeah.
practice. And that's what that workshop really goes into. Um, I also have my book coming out actually on Saturday. I wrote a book called The Body Ministry, and it's a playbook for women who are embarking on their health and fitness journey. After spending as many years as I did as a personal trainer and owning a gym and doing those things and working with women, what I'm really, really clear about is that we have not been given the space, the time, or even the expertise really to do that internal work that supports the external transformation. You cannot change form without first changing your mind. And my
Right.
book is the work that you can do alongside whatever, nutrition program, boot camp, or personal trainer that you've got going. This book is the aftercare, you might want to look at it as, to that work, so that you're getting that internal transformation alongside with the external one. So that's actually coming out on Saturday. And then
Like, is it
along with
2 days
that,
from now, Saturday? Like,
in 2 days from now on
not
Saturday.
on
Yeah,
2/22? Did you
exactly.
do that on
On
purpose?
2/20, I did.
I love it.
I
Okay.
did. I'm all about the angel numbers,
Yes.
100%. And so there's that. And then I also just launched my self-care collective, and it's because I realized going through the book, while the book is fantastic, and I've gotten really great reviews on that. It still helps to have a community, right? And I think that's one of the things that's really missing from what we need is just in general is community, but specifically when you're trying to make strides towards your health, your well-being, and your self-care. Because I've been the one healthy friend in the group for most of my friendships, and it's not easy, right? You can go so much farther together, and so I've developed a community that I'm literally building right now for women to come in and practice self-care. So it's called the Self-Care Collective. And in there, there's everything from doing, you can work along with me, with the book in the group. You can bring your own current practices in. I actually have this really awesome AI tool that we're
Oh,
using to customize using ChatGPT, your nutrition plan, your workout plan, your self-care practices. I mean, it's an awesome prompt that you can use and refine over time as your life changes, as opposed to left wondering, I only have 15 minutes for dinner, or I only have 15 minutes for a workout, and all I have is like a pair of bands in my kitchen table. ChatGPT can answer that for you, and I help you with the prompts to be able to create,
awesome.
the plans. And so it's a lot of resources. There's workshops, there's fun self-care challenges. So it's a lot of resources in a community where you have access to answers. I'm sure there's been times where you're like, I'm going to go to the gym and I don't have that equipment available to me. So what else should I use? Pop it into the collective and I'll be there to answer you, right? So it's that kind of support. And then, of course, I have my mentorships, which I try to keep really limited because I give a lot. And so I don't want to
Yeah,
overgive. But I do have a mentorship available as well, where it's just one on one with me for 12 weeks.
that's
So there's a
awesome.
lot out there available for women to get on board if, they decide that self care is their next step. And I've been saying that I think 2025 is the year of self care, the self care journey. Most of us have experienced a weight loss journey. We've experienced, the exercise. We've done all of that, but we haven't truly, what's the word I'm looking for? We haven't truly adopted caring for ourselves in those endeavors. It's often more of a punishing, disciplinary kind of attitude that we
Yeah.
take towards ourselves and our body. And I'm really encouraging women to get away from the idea of this strict discipline, add love to it. And when you add love to discipline, you have a devotion. And I find that, approaching your body with devotion, that love, that grace, that care, the weight releases itself. The healing really begins from the inside out, and then you can truly transform, which is changing form. So yeah, that's what I do. That's what I offer these days. Especially, I'll just add this one last piece, especially for women in leadership, or women who want to be leaders. I had said at the beginning of our conversation that I know that part of the reason why I did well in corporate was because of my health and well-being. And we spend so much money investing, not just money, time and energy, but we invest our resources in continuing education, in and all of these certifications, and even just our physical self, getting, the lashes and the nails. We invest so much in these things that are external, that we literally are affixing to our body or affixing to ourselves in order to say, look at me, I'm a leader. Look at me, I'm, someone to be trusted, and I can, affect change. But the first person we actually need to lead is ourselves. And I
Yes.
think, that's what I was doing. We didn't call it personal branding 12 years ago, but showing up as a bodybuilder to my meetings spoke volumes and such a potency that I my words would have never captured in terms of my discipline, my strategy, my time management, my ability to pivot when necessary. All of these things are things that you learn through taking care of yourself that speak for you when you enter rooms. And so the greatest investment you can make beyond your degrees, beyond anything, is caring for your actual self. And so, for women who want to be in leadership or who are in leadership and don't know exactly what's going to separate you when everyone's got degrees and has worked for these great companies and everyone's kind of on the same page, what's going to separate you is your health and well being. It will speak for you when you enter rooms.
Hmm. It's a lot about energy too. All of that
A
gives you that
hundred percent.
positive energy. So people, if I walked into a room and look at five different women, I don't know where they went to school. I don't know what their degrees are. I
Yeah,
don't know what certifications they have, but I can feel their energy and tell you like
yeah,
if I feel comfortable with somebody or if I feel like this is someone I would want to hang out with or maybe avoid, so there's and all of that comes from, feeling happy and feeling
yeah.
confident. And sometimes it's just be, like you said, confident in your own skin.
Yes,
I have two final questions for you. So one
yes,
is, we talked a little bit about people, you mentioned kind of self-care on Sundays and how it's not enough. It's a good first step. So if you're not doing anything, like on
yes.
Sundays is a good way to start, but it should be every day. Like what baby steps would you recommend for folks who just are really struggling to even make a Sunday happen? Like any baby steps
Yeah.
that you would
Oh my gosh, yes.
suggest?
The number one thing that I tell women to do when you're getting started on any sort of health, fitness, self-care journey is go to bed, get some sleep. 8 hours of sleep. I bet you're not doing it. I bet you're
Probably
not doing
not.
it consistently. That is where the magic happens when we sleep. Like literally, go watch. Have you heard of Masterclass?
Yes.
I forget the gentleman's name. It just literally popped out of my head. But there's a master class on sleep. I saw that, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, whenever master class first came out. And actually, it was during the pandemic, I think, that I saw that. And
Yeah,
just blew my mind. Literally, magic is happening in our body
while you
when we
sleep.
rest, while we sleep. Nothing replaces it. There's nothing, and you can't even get caught up on it. Like it's the mechanisms
Right.
in our body require sleep for us to be at our best. And so if there's any one thing I would recommend a woman do to get started is sleep. The next thing I would say is hydrate. We're not getting enough water. That's
Yes.
just the fact. Water is also magic. It's been used in medicine and spiritual rituals, and it's the number one element, life force that we look for living a quality life, right? Like back in the
Yeah.
Pilgrim days, we settled no water because water was that important, and we take it for granted today, even though it can be delivered to us, on our doorstep.
Yes.
But those would be the two things I would say for women to start with is getting a good night's rest and drinking water. And those things are free. They're accessible to
And
you
they're
all the
easy.
time,
They're so
and they're
you literally don't have to
easy.
do anything. You just
You
go lay
don't have to
down.
do anything.
Lay down.
This is why I say traditional wellness. This is traditional wellness for modern women. We don't need to go get the newfangled thing that's so complicated, or we don't need to starve ourselves. And actually, I will add that often when we think about getting healthy, the first thing we think about doing is getting on a diet. But that won't work because health equals wholeness. You cannot cut or diet your way to wholeness. The only way you can get to
Interesting.
wholeness is by adding to, by nourishing and nurturing yourself. And so I say consume sleep and water and high vibrational foods in abundance. If you want to get healthy, you want to start this journey, consume in abundance those three things. And after that, you can think about movement and going to a gym. Your body will crave movement after a few weeks of nourishing yourself. But don't worry about that. Don't worry about going on a diet. Don't worry about getting a gym membership and a personal trainer because those things will fail you because your body's not in a
Right.
state to be receptive to change. Nourish it, love it, like baby your body for a few weeks with those three things, with rest, water, and high vibrational foods.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And then the final question was, I think mentioned your book. So one more time to repeat your book, but also where can folks find you if they want to work with you, mentorship, if they want to check out anything that you're offering, how do people find you after this?
Thank you. So the book is called The Body Ministry. It's a playbook for your health and fitness journey. That, along with my self care collective community, my donation based workshops, and actually, I've got a couple of blogs I forgot to mention, but my blogs all can be found on oriara.com. ORIARA.com. And please come visit. There's a lot of great, and there's a ton of other free resources that I make available on my website because, again, I really want women to like catch this bug and get as excited as I am, about having a body. Like I try to help you discover your passion by sharing my own. And hopefully you feel that when you visit the site.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I think too we think like, oh, this body was a punishment. It's like, no, no, but you picked this. Like for whatever reason ahead of time, you picked this body. And
Yeah.
now, like you said, take care of it. Treat it like it's a
Yeah.
baby. Like this is what you were living in until you're not anymore. So like this is what you have. Take care
This
of
is
it.
it.
I love that. And I recommend folks to go check it out. I will post the links and everything too with this wherever I have it posted, just so people can see it and access it. But Cassandra, thank you so much. It was lovely to hear your story and to just hear your thoughts on things. Like I said, I felt multiple emotions as we were talking, even though we had already talked about some of this before. But I appreciate your time, and everybody else. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay, it should.